First things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright on a hashtag Spicy Friday. CC, enlighten the good people. Tell everyone why we keep throwing Spicy Friday out there.
Well, it has a lot to do with our wardrobe.
You guys look great today, speaking of wardrobe.
We do.
Yeah,
we do.
Nick, we'll give it back to you. You are
this
dashing.
is particularly fantastic from the both of you guys.
Spicy attitude, spicy takes. That's how we do it on Friday.
All of it. All right, so let's get started right off the bat. We're starting with the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott's 6-game suspension, the one that appeared to have gone away for the season, is now back in place. Now, keep in mind, there are options for Elliott to continue to fight the suspension. If he does not, however, the next game he'd be available to play would be November 30th against the Washington Redskins. So, Nick, let's start with you. How much trouble are the Cowboys in if Zeke does indeed miss 6 games? Next 6 games.
Not as much trouble as I think most people believe them to be in. I say that because I am a true believer in Dak Prescott. Now, let me just back up for a moment. I
you have to put out several disclaimers.
Okay, but
before you present your case.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
But this is a non-football disclaimer. I'm not going to get into what he was suspended for. We know what he's been accused of, what Cris has, I think, a lot of information that the public doesn't have about what he's been accused of and how horrifying those crimes are. Well, I'm going to talk about this just from a football perspective, not to be insensitive, but because we're talking about this, what this means for the Cowboys. First of all, for the Cowboys, I think they are right now thinking, man, I wish he had never won any appeal. I wish he was 5/6 of his way through the suspension right now.
When you first started.
Because they're 2-3, and guess what? Their 2 wins, when they blew out the Giants in week 1, when the Giants scored 3 points, and the win they got against a dreadful Arizona team, they'd be 2-3 if Zeke hadn't played yet. So now, instead of having Zeke on the field for an easier part of their schedule where they didn't play that well and they only had 1 divisional game, they're going to miss him for a tougher part of their schedule where they play multiple divisional games, where they're already behind the 8 ball because of the 2-3 record. So why do I think they can be okay? Because I believe they've got the best quarterback in their division. I believe they've got one of the 2 best young quarterbacks in football. I believe that what we are going to see from Dak Prescott is what you see from excellent quarterbacks league-wide, which is I can't go 16 games by myself. But if in this stretch we need to find a way to go 3-3, maybe 4-2, I am good enough to get that done, assuming I get some help from the defense, assuming I get some help from the offensive line. That's what I think we're going to see.
I think, Jenna, that they're in tremendous amount of trouble, and for a number of reasons. And I believe in Dak. Like, there's nothing wrong with, I believe in Dak, but Alfred Morris, Darren McFadden, they're less than Zeke in every area that you would want. Say, let's just go with running the ball between the tackles, all right? They're not as good as Zeke. Breakaway speed, finishing the play. McFadden, he started in the league very fast, but he hadn't had a breakaway run in a long time. Yeah. I mean, Alfred Morris had one earlier in the season, but the big playability is deleted from the offense. All right, picking up blitz on 3rd down. Zeke is better. Out of the backfield, catching the football. Zeke is better. The rest of the offense has more confidence with Zeke. The offensive line, they have a better feel for Zeke because they have a few hundred reps of Zeke reading how they were going to block. Now, what I think is the only way they can get by with this and be 3-3, it's time for Dez Bryant and Jason Witten to have a meeting amongst the skilled guys. That's the wide receivers and tight ends. Because the only way it's going to be salvaged is if those guys play spectacular. Now, if I was on the Dallas Cowboys, as Cris Carter, that's what I would do. I would have a meeting, say we can't control Zeke, him being on the field, but what we can control is we can be dominant. And if they're dominant as a group, which is not one person, I'm not saying Dez step up, it's 5 or 6 guys. It's Jason Witten. It's Cole Beasley.
Terrence Williams,
I mean,
Bryce Butler.
All these guys.
Group.
Like, it's time to have a heart-to-heart, and, like, we can make the difference until Zeke gets back to keep us in playoff contention.
So it's not going to be running back by committee that's going to basically stay in place and keep these guys in contention until Zeke gets back.
I don't think the other guys are that good. Now, they got a good offensive line, but, they have to do that. I mean, they will rely on McFadden, and they will rely on Alfred Morris, so it will be by committee, but the committee is not as good. Zeke is a dominant, elite player. And people are like, oh, it's the next man up. Well, the next man's not as good.
Right.
Nick, I think you brought up a really good point. I think it's time to see what Dak really has and if he's the elite quarterback.
I'm excited for it.
If you look at the next 6 games, at San Fran, at Redskins, home against the Chiefs, at Atlanta, home against the Eagles, home against the Chargers, a lot of those games are late games. There's a Sunday night game. There's like
Cowboys going to be on national television.
They're going to be on national television. And if Dak Prescott wants to be an elite quarterback, you got to win the big games. You got to win the divisional games. You got to win the games against the Eagles at home. Like, these are the games that you have to go out and win without Zeke in your line.
No doubt about it. And this is why I am excited to see this, because I had my beliefs about Dak last year, but they were unprovable. I believed that Dak played like a league MVP. I believed that if Dak had been the 4th overall pick instead of a 4th round pick, we would be talking about him in much more glowing terms than we were. However, there was always the asterisk of, but he's got that running back who's averaging 100 yards a game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's got that offensive line that last year was the best in football. Well, what's he got now? He's got replacement-level running backs in Darren McFadden and Alfred Morris. Those guys are good as backups. As starters, they are average to below average. He's got an offensive line that this year has played well, as opposed to playing dominant like he did last year. He's got a #1 receiver making $18 million a year, who is not playing like one of the 18 best receivers in the league. So now the control group has changed drastically. And now we can see, and listen, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but now I can see if I was right about what I thought I saw with Dak, which is a special player.
Yeah, the only way you can be proven to be wrong, it's going to be someone else's fault. It's that defense. All right? If that defense does not play better, no matter how good Dak is, you'll be wrong. It won't be your fault. But based on the defense, if the defense does not improve, all right, they're going to struggle. I mean, offense is only 1/3 of the game. But if that defense, I mean, if you keep giving up touchdowns and you have to play from behind, this team is not meant to do that, let alone with Zeke or without Zeke.
This is also, though, because you mentioned the schedule, Jenna, and sandwiched right in the middle of this 6-game suspension is as tough of a 3-game stretch as any team will face all season. Home for the Chiefs, at Atlanta, home for the Eagles. Those are 3 brutal games.
It's funny that you would mention the Eagles, because right now they're 5-1. So what is Dallas fighting for?
Wild card.
They're fighting for a wild
card. Right now, it looks like unless something drastically changed with the Eagles, they're fighting for a wild card, which is why, CC, right now this morning, you know what Dallas has enormous agita about, just like it's waking them up? Well, not just this decision, Jenna, but the decision they couldn't really control. You know what they could control? Hold a double-digit lead against the Rams. Then you're 3-2. Hold a double-digit lead against Green Bay. Then you're 4-1. And I know they didn't, but if the Cowboys are sitting here at 4-1, like, okay, Zeke, even if we go 2-4 without Zeke, when he comes back, and we're 6-5, we can deal with it.
Yes.
But when you're sitting at 2-3, the margin of error is much smaller. You hate must-wins early in the season, CC. They come off the bye with a couple back-to-back must-wins. At San Francisco, at Washington, with those next 3 that we just talked about coming up.
Did the Cowboys think that they were going to be able to get through the season without Zeke serving a game? Did they legitimately think that, knowing exactly what Tom Brady went through and all of it? I mean, was that their thing? Because otherwise, they had to have thought, hey, let's get him out the first 6 games and then see where we are.
No, listen to Jerry Jones' press conference. Remember, they didn't have any evidence against him. Oh, everything's going to be okay. Yeah, I told you guys he was going to serve a 6-game suspension, either at the beginning of the season, middle of the season. Yes, those suspensions do not go away. They do not give out suspensions from Park Avenue for them to be reduced or for them to look like they don't have any control.
I think because of the Tom Brady thing, though, Jenna, I agreed with Chris that he was eventually serving the 6 games. Once I saw he wasn't serving it to start the year, I was pretty convinced it was going to be much like Tom Brady, a full year later. I didn't think
and it still could be.
Right. At this point, I think it's highly unlikely that this suspension doesn't start when the NFL's saying it's starting, Tuesday, which is right now, essentially. And so it's a brutal spot for the Cowboys, but it's an opportunity for them.
Eagles and Panthers, and this was all Philly in this one as they beat Carolina 28-23. Carson Wentz threw 3 touchdowns as the Birds improved to 5-1. Best record in the NFC, by the way. Cam Newton threw for a touchdown, ran for 1, but he also had 3 costly interceptions. Afterwards, a very interestingly dressed Cam Newton spoke about the game.
You know, that's a great team. We're a good team that we're playing. Playoff caliber football. And I think that was our first dose of that, and you know, we will be better from it.
That was a hard-fought win on the road, on a short week, on primetime TV. So to come out of it 5-1 and to know that we're at home the next couple weeks, that's big for us.
You know, we can't feel sorry for ourselves, and we don't. You know, we got to be better. We will be better moving forward, and that's the confidence that I have.
Okay, while we let Nick compose himself about Cam, CC, I will ask you first. Was last night's performance the real Cam Newton?
That should stick a pin in your eye. Should not be listening to you.
That was weird.
That's what I should
You're going to bring this to television.
Did you give him a betting suggestion?
I talked
Is that
him
what you
out
call
of,
it?
I talked Chris out of a double winner into a single big loser. That did happen. Chris called me. Hey, I like the Eagles and the over. CC, no.
So you know what I'm going to start doing?
What?
Stop calling.
Yeah, that's fair. So
or you can ask me.
I talked him out of it. You don't know what either of those terms mean.
But I would have said the Eagles were going to win.
I talked him
we've
out
been
of
on
it.
the Eagles.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry about that, CC. I will pay you back with money I borrow from you. But go ahead, as you were.
Last night is a night that the people who have opposition to Cam Newton, they'll be like, yeah, I told you, this guy right here, he's inconsistent after 2 weeks in a row. But I'm willing to give Cam last night because, I mean, he was forced into some turnovers. I mean, when your right guard gets run over, and I don't know what got into Fletcher Cox last night, but my goodness, I mean, he was a monster on the field. So I believe this is not the typical Cam Newton that we're going to see. Ron Rivera, he told us that this is not going to be your normal training camp year for Cam. His reps were really, really down. And the Eagles' defense, you have to give them a lot of credit. Now, they were fortunate. The interception out of the running back's hands right into the defender, that's not going to happen. The miscommunication between the wide receiver, most interceptions, I would say half of them, are at least the wide receiver or the receiver's fault. But the quarterback gets all the blame of them. So at least 2 of those interceptions were the receiver's fault. Cam will continue to get better. Now, I don't know why he said this was like a playoff game that we hadn't faced before, because didn't they play New England?
New England ain't that good.
I mean, like, aren't they the Super Bowl champs?
Well, I will say this. For Cam's only playing the other team's defense, right? New England certainly doesn't. When he's on the field, that doesn't feel like he's playing a playoff team because their defense is so bad.
They got Tom Brady.
Right, but he's not going up against Tom Brady. This is the first playoff caliber defense, I think he was saying, that they've gone up against.
But
is
it's
that
the
fair?
whole. But
regardless.
Yeah, I just thought that maybe that right there was just a little naive. Now, knowing that they might have to see Philadelphia again, realizing that Philadelphia was a lot more physical than any team that they faced. Right. Maybe that's what he was talking about.
All right, let me start with Cam. So, CC's right that the first 2 picks were not Cam's fault. He has his right guard pushed into him, and that I don't even know if that was an interception. I thought it was a fumble that was caught in the air like that, but regardless, that one's not on him. He threw a perfect pass to Jonathan Stewart that could have gone for a first down that Stewart fumbled or tipped up in the air. But Cam threw an interception late that got waved off because of a very shaky pass interference call. He threw 2 other could have been interceptions late that would have been just his fault that were dropped. And then he did throw a killer interception that was caught on what he described as a miscommunication that he put on himself between he and Kelvin Benjamin. So while 2 interceptions weren't on him, there were a couple more that could have been on his record. What was frustrating to me as a fan of Cam Newton was his team didn't play well. Their running backs were as bad as you will ever see professional running backs be. I just want to give you the running back log on what they got on each carry. 1 yard, -3, 0, -6, 0, -2, -2, -2. That was their first 8 runs of the game. The long carry for running back was 1 yard. So the running backs aren't playing well. They have some bad turnover luck. The offensive line's not playing well. Despite that, Cam gets the ball, gets it to midfield twice, down 5 in the final 4 minutes of the game, and neither time can make the necessary plays. On the first of those 2 opportunities, through the bad pick where he's trying to target Benjamin. On the second of the 2 opportunities, they have a 3rd and 1. Romo's begging them to run it. They take a deep shot. And then on 4th and 1, he misses an easy pass to Christian McCaffrey. And I heard CeCe's voice in my head watching this game. I was like, man, right now he is playing like a streak shooter. Right now, he is playing like a guy that doesn't have his confidence, that's frustrated with the way the game has gone, and is not composing himself, because this could have been a game, Jenna, that the Panthers steal. One of these games you hate that I talk about where they weren't better than the other team, they should have lost, but you know what? They get the win. It was set up for that.
I have a question for you. So, and I'm not a big numbers person, but a number that stuck out to me and my producer, Ryan, we talked about earlier, was that we didn't talk about it earlier. I don't even know why I said that. Cam threw the ball 52 times in yesterday's game. We talked a lot coming into this season about which Cam we were going to see, the pocket passer or the guy that's going to rely on his instincts to go and run. Did they ask him to do too much last night? Or was that a result of what his running backs were doing?
Yeah, it was forced. Also, those attempts that Nick talked about, when you're running ball, especially on 1st down, and you get -1 yard, you get 2 yards, you're forced to throw the ball on 2nd down. And Philadelphia kept scoring. So when you're pressed, and the coaches, you don't give the coaches any other options. Now, Cam is more capable at any other time in his career to throw the ball 40 times. Like, he's more than capable. In the pocket, I'm totally comfortable. But what I don't like is, late in the game, what you start to see is his fundamentals break down. You see him start to rush the ball or muscle the football compared to stepping with his fundamentals, sticking to his target, flighting the ball where the guys can catch it. So those are the things that I've been critical about.
What happened on his final throw of the game? You did a demonstration for me off the air. The 4th and 1 throw to McCaffrey that he one-hopped to him when they could have continued the drive and a touchdown wins.
Cam has such an amazing arm and shoulder, but a lot of times he's very lazy with his feet. So he tries to force the ball with his shoulder, and the ball comes out hot. In a situation like McCaffrey, it's 4th down and short. You cannot flight a ball through the lineman low. He was running the in-breaking route towards the middle of the field. The receiver can't see the football because the ball passes through the helmets of the offensive players. So it becomes very hard. Most quarterbacks sit tall, keep their elbow up, and flight the ball over top so the ball can stay in their eyesight. When the ball is low like that, you see McCaffrey, he couldn't come up with it. But those are the fundamentals that you see the best in the game. Late in the game, their fundamentals are just like before the game.
Jenna, you asked, are they asking Cam to do too much? Here was the deal last night. You know how many times they ran consecutive handoffs to a running back? They did that once the entire game. Because of what you're talking about. They gave it to a running back on 1st down, then it's 2nd and 13, now we're running it. They give it to the running back on 1st down, now it's 2nd and 12, now we got to throw it. This year, this shouldn't surprise people. Cam Newton has accounted for every single one of the Panthers' passing touchdowns. What is jarring for a team that appears to be a good football team, Cam Newton has accounted for every single one of the Panthers' rushing touchdowns. And the other part of this game that can't be forgotten, the Eagles had a lot of success running the ball late in the game. Luke Kuechly went out.
Yeah, that's the performance I'm worried about, because they are a different football team.
Protocol,
yeah, and this will be his 3rd year in a row. Last year he missed significant time. Also, the team kept him out of the last 3 games of the regular season as precautionary measures.
I want him to get another one.
To see him get hurt. Now, you're talking about one of the great players, former MVP of the NFL defensively.
But
they are a different team without him.
Good spirit for that team. They need him out.
Oh, no, he's a great player.
You heard it from the crowd when he just walked onto the field.
And this is a scary one, too. The last time Luke Kuechly got a concussion, prior to last night, he left the field sobbing. And it wasn't because, we saw Odell crying. because he was in pain and he knew his season was over, or he knew it was likely over.
Well, with Odell, we don't really know.
Okay, fair enough. But the Kuechly thing, everything I read after that was that can be a auto response to a brain trauma.
Yeah.
Is like you lose control of your. It was scary seeing him leave the field last time. Seeing him with another one. It's not a guy that he's going to be the concussion protocol 10 days and come back next week necessarily. And he's the second most important player on that entire team.
Tom Brady was listed as a limited participant in practice on Thursday. I just love words that hint at other things. This as he recovers from an injury to his non-throwing shoulder. He and the Patriots will take on the Jets this week, their division rivals. And even though the Patriots are nearly double-digit favorites in this one, Tom Brady isn't taking his opponent lightly.
I think they've had a good team, and I think, every time we play down there, it's been a tough game. In the last 5 years, it's been a bunch of tough games, and that's what we're expecting.
All right, Nick, do you really think you calm down a little bit? You're good?
Yeah,
you ready to go? Because you look
excited.
I don't know. You look
I'm good. I'm
okay.
good.
Puzzled.
Do the Jets really have a chance to beat the Patriots in this? We said double-digit favorites the Patriots are.
Double-digit road favorites are the Patriots, which is a slap in the face to a 3-2 Jets team. Now listen, the Jets are not a good team, and their wins have come against bad football teams. I understand that. However, when you have a defense as bad as the Pats' defense has been, everyone has a chance. Everybody has a puncher's chance, especially at home. And this is something that I didn't see coming, that I know that this is one of the many, quarterback is on the list of, as Cris would call them, bums that shouldn't have a job over Colin Kaepernick, and I agree with him. But Josh McCown...
I'm a little strong on that.
Josh McCown...
LeGrand got me stuck on that.
I know, the bum. Josh McCown has played well against bad defenses this year.
Yes.
Against Miami, he played a good game. Against Oakland, even though they lost, he played a good game. Against Cleveland, he's coming off a good game. So do the Jets have a chance? Yeah, they win the turnover battle. They're going to score points. Obviously, I'm not picking the Jets to win this game, but an 11-point line strikes me as a little high. And the Pats have real issues that we have seen every week of the year this season.
Anytime you play a team within your division, you see them twice a year. There's some trade secrets that you know.
Okay.
Me playing in Minnesota, there's certain things I knew about Chicago as far as what they want to do with their blitzers. They were going to double team me, who they like to use. We play the Packers. They have a different scheme. We go to Detroit. But I know those things because I've been playing those teams 2 times for a number of years. When you have a game like the Jets, Todd Bowles, he will put together a competent defensive package. Based upon what New England's been doing, they're going to put some pressure on Tom Brady. Coach Mangini told us you can't give Brady the same game plan the second half as you do the first half. But when you look at the last 4 games, which all NFL teams do in preparing, if you look at the amount of times guys have been able to get free to hit Tom Brady, it only takes one Muhammad Wilkerson landing on Tom Brady's throwing shoulder or non-throwing shoulder. All right? And then we're to the backup.
Leonard Williams could do the same thing.
Yeah, so do they have a chance? Absolutely, especially with the way the Pats are playing and people are getting to Brady, let alone the defense giving up the highest yardage per play in the NFL. I mean, Josh McCown, he should look pretty good going against this defense.
At the beginning of the season, this clearly looked like a joke, which is what this matchup had been the last couple of years. But don't lose sight of the fact that these two teams can't stand each other. There's a rivalry that goes back a couple years, and living here in New York, I get that. And I understand that it doesn't parlay itself into wins or losses or anything, and it's not competitive. But these two teams can't stand each other.
Did the Coyote have a rivalry with the Cliff? Like, I don't know if I'd call it a rivalry. There's some hatred, I agree, but no quarterback has ever dominated an opponent in NFL history the way Brady's dominated the Jets. They've played 29 times in his career. He is 26-3. Nobody in the history of the league has ever dominated a single opponent with that many games against him as Brady has the Jets.
Right, and you know the reason why?
Why?
Because he thinks it's a rivalry, too.
Oh, okay.
He pays attention. Like Tom Brady, you know the teams that you have to beat. And Jenna, you're right. Even though one team has dominated, when you play in a rivalry game, guys who don't study as much, they pay a little more attention to detail. and this Jets team being at 3-2, man, if they can win this game,
right?
I mean, because this is probably, if all the guys on the Jets, they would say this is the least impressive New England team that they faced.
Of course.
So you're talking about they're used to seeing them. They're used to New England being better all around. So the confidence, and if they really pay attention to the details as far as what other teams have exploited on them, yeah, it gives the Jets plenty of opportunities to win this game.
But this is the kind of game where, and I know this because I spent years in this Jets locker room every time the Patriots were coming to town. They get up for every game. But when they're playing the Patriots, there is a visceral reaction to this team. And it's much the way the Bears were terrible for years in the past. There was a rivalry with the Packers, and the Bears were terrible. It was still a rivalry. And when you get in that locker room and you talk about a game coming up on Sunday, they get up for a game like this.
To speak to your point, just quickly here, this is the biggest game the Jets have hosted.
Yeah.
Since week 17 of 2015, Todd Bowles' first year as coach, that Jets team was surprising 10-5, playoffs on the line in week 17.
Right.
Who came to town and beat them down? The New England Patriots did. Listen, I don't think the Jets are going to win this football game, but I think the Pats defense, you can't be predicting blowouts for the Pats against anybody.
The Packers maybe not get thrown under the bus at every possible opportunity. The Packers head to Minnesota to take on the Vikings on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers has been on a roll, leading Green Bay to 3 straight wins, but he still has plenty of respect for Minnesota's defense.
They got great players. You know, when you got great pass rush, you got one of the top linebacker duos in the league, and you got a lockdown corner on one side and 2 other really talented corners and 2 great safeties. You know, the windows are already small in the red zone, so you're talking about great defense, small windows. Execution is at an absolute premium, and teams haven't been able to do it against them.
All right, talk about a rivalry. Here's another great one right here. CeCe, how does Aaron Rodgers stack up against the Vikings defense?
The newfound running game. Aaron Jones, they have to run the football. The Vikings, tremendous crowd noise. So Aaron Rodgers with the no huddle. And also, it negates some of his snap count with him being able to control the game with his artificial head bobbing and getting
the
guys.
3 plays.
Yes, but the running game makes a huge difference for Green Bay. Green Bay's defense matches up well with the Vikings' offense. But Aaron Rodgers, if you give him a running game, because then it opens up the play-action pass, which opens up routes deeper down the field. So Aaron Rodgers with a running game. Aaron Rodgers started off in Minnesota kind of rough his first couple games, but he's kind of figured out that little short trip to Minneapolis now.
Man, more than kind of figured it out.
Yes.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers lost 7 games against the Vikings. So that's not, I mean, that's mostly the same players.
Decent sample size.
Last 7 games against the Vikings. Oh, all he's done is 18 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a passer rating of 117. So that's the best player on the Packers, right, Aaron Rodgers? What about the best player on their defense? Mike Daniels. His last 8 games against the Vikings. Oh, he has 8.5 sacks, which he's not a 15-sack-a-year guy.
No,
he's a
that's
really good player, but that's a huge number for a guy who's primarily a run-stopping D tackle. So this is a matchup that the best player on their offense loves, the best player on their defense loves. The Vikings, Case Keenum, while he has played well at home when this game is in Minnesota, I think Case Keenum has played over his skis a bit, even against a bad Packers secondary. I don't know that you can go into a game being like, well, Case Keenum's going to have a good game. Any good Case Keenum game is a bonus for you. And this is a type of game, CC, where if Dalvin Cook hadn't been injured, I'd be like, oh, okay. Vikings control time of possession.
Would you say the same thing with him and Sam Bradford? If the 2 of them were there, would this be a far better matchup?
Yes, it would. But at this point, I mean, Chris, a healthy Sam Bradford is a unicorn.
Well, I think that Sam Bradford might be the first player in the history of the league that gets his leg amputated off a bone bruise. I mean, my goodness. Now, he don't have big legs, but it is a bone bruise, not a broken bone bruise. I guess bone bruises are just more significant than they used to be.
Well, I mean, it is odd to see the disparity, and I know different injuries, different guys. Derek Carr literally, and it sounds worse than I guess it actually was, but literally broke his back.
Yeah, there's a lot of bones in your back. They broke a couple of them, small ones, in the bottom of the back.
And is going to miss 1 game. Poor Sam Bradford can't get back on the field. This is another, it appears to be, snake-bitten year for Minnesota. Their star running back, who was a great pick
the
in the
last
second
4
round.
years.
Yeah, that's why I said another one. Like, They had Teddy Bridgewater suffer a true catastrophic injury.
Yeah, he can't come off the injury reserve until Monday, so potential him coming back next week is there.
Right. Go ahead.
And as you said, the Packers have really dominated the Vikings. It doesn't mean the Vikings don't absolutely, desperately want to beat the Packers and don't look at them the same way I was talking about the Jets and the Patriots. That's what I mean. One
Vikings
team dominating.
defense. The Vikings win this game, their defensive line sacks Aaron Rodgers 5 times, and they are capable of that.
Welcome back to First Things First. I was just dancing. We're now joined by, I don't do it well, but at least I try. We're now joined by Eric LeGrand. Eric, thanks so much for being with us. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
Good to see you, Eric. Thank you.
Awesome, Eric.
Yes.
Eric, we should mention 7 years ago, and I'm from New York, so I was there and following you and all, but 7 years ago Monday, you suffered that devastating injury while you were at Rutgers, which left you paralyzed. But it's the work that you've done afterwards and the places I've seen you and the impact that you have made on so many. I watched speeches you've given, the places you've been, the people that you've impacted, which has been really so wonderful. And it comes on as I bring up the web series that you recently launched, which I also love on foxsports.com, called Mission Possible, where you team up with different celebrities, The Rock, Michael Strahan, Tom Brady. I'm not familiar with Tom Brady's work, but afterwards you and I should get together to talk about it. All different people with different types of disabilities. Talk to me a little bit about what that experience, getting to know them and getting to hear their stories and what that was all like for you.
Honestly, it's very inspiring because you get to go into these people's houses and their families, and you get to, hear their stories. And usually they don't have the platform to get to share their story. And with Mission Possible, we've been able to give them their platform to be able to share their stories, get their, what they're going through out into the world, and then also get them to be able to do a cool experience like meet Tom Brady or go, get to go with The Rock, things like that. And it just gives them a day where they can just forget about everything that they have going on in their lives and just be able to just look back and be like, wow, look how fortunate I was to be able to do this. And, life does really go on, and you can really enjoy life no matter what your ability or disability is.
You made a great life for yourself. I met you at ESPN a number of years ago. And your story is so inspiring. In between the breaks, you coming on, it's amazing the conversation you have about football.
Yeah.
And I just have to ask you this question. How much do you miss football?
Oh, man, Chris, I miss football so much. I think about it every single day when I wake up, like, where I would have been. Like, I'm like, this could have been, if I'd been a stud in the NFL, this could have been my 6th season. I'm like a seasoned vet now, looking at some of these young guys playing. I think about it all the time, but I am very fortunate around that. I still am around the game by being able to work on the radio, being able to go around Rutgers, be on the field with the guys, still be able to have my teammates that are in the NFL, get to go see them, That's what keeps me going and being able to be around the game. Even though I think about it every day, I wish I'd be able to play and get to see where my full potential could have been.
Right.
But I closed that chapter on my life, and now, like I said, just being around the guys, that's kind of just what keeps me going, because there's nothing like being in that locker room. You know how that is. That's the stuff that you always remember.
Yes, and I saw the piece on you, and it was based on kind of your philosophy in life, and that was based on your coaches taught you to finish the play.
Yes.
And, man, it was bone-chilling. You went back to the actual spot where you were on the field, and you actually saw yourself getting up. And as we do this interview, the rest of your life and all these other things, that's what I would call your high school coach and college coaches saying, Eric, finish the play. How important is it for you now to have the type of impact in other people's lives? But football kind of taught you that and led you to where you are today.
It is. Football's made me into the person I am today. People always ask me that, like, do you have any remorse towards football? I'm like, no. Without the game of football, I wouldn't be who I am today. The lessons I learned from playing the game of football, learning how to work together as a team, the adversity that you go through playing football, it set me up for life afterwards. And that's how, now I look back on it. So many people were helping me out in the very beginning. I looked at my situation. I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to give back. That was forming a foundation, but also forming this show with Fox Sports, Mission Possible, and being able to go out there. And like I said, I get a reward from it too, because you hear these stories and they inspire me as well to keep going.
I know we're going to talk about some actual football. You're a bit of a Big Ten expert, so we're going to get into that with another Big Ten expert in Cris Carter. But I want to talk about Mission Possible for a second. Some of these names, I think sports fans, people that watch the show, like, wow, Tom Brady. Am I crazy, or is the biggest star you've been around as far as people's reaction to him not Tom Brady, but in fact, The Rock.
I was going to say.
The Rock is. I'm telling you, like he's gonna be president one day, like he says. When you
He's got great energy.
You see it when you go walk around Dwayne, and like everyone in the room just gets quiet and like looks up what he's gonna do next. I remember when he came in for the Ballers premiere when I got to see him down there in Miami. I rose my chair up so he could see me too. I remember he just got done wiping his face. He looks over, looks at me, double takes, comes over, and like everyone moved, and like part of like the Red Sea as he came over just to say hello to me. And ever since then, you know, we've really been really good friends, and whatever we needed from him, you know, it's been pretty awesome.
He seems just some of the things we've seen. I don't know if you saw it a couple months ago. There was a kid who saved their younger sibling. The younger sibling fall into the pool. I think a 7-year-old pulled him out of the pool and did CPR based on the CPR they had learned. I don't try this at home, but the CPR they had learned watching one of The Rock's movies. And The Rock then flew out to see flew the family into his movie set, did a whole thing with the kids, with the family. You never know with like famous people what they are on TV and what they are in real life. You know the guy. Seems like a genuinely good-hearted person and involving with things like this with Mission Impossible, which is such a great cause.
He really is. He's, as you said, very genuine. You know, it's not because the cameras are on. It's like, oh, I have to do this. No, he really reaches out to the families. And when he goes on, you see him when he goes on his Instagram and he puts out those videos of something that inspired him or maybe caught his attention that day. That's really him being genuine, The Rock, you know, Dwayne Johnson. And that's good to see that there are people like that with his stature in this world that he doesn't have to do that, but he does look at those, you know, stories and wants to put those stories to notice for other people.
The other mission that you're on is you want to see, and you're not going to wait for 5 or 10 years. You want to see Rutgers back in the national spotlight from a football standpoint. You cover the team. Chris Ash, former Ohio State coach, is at the helm there. You're very comfortable with Ash, his coaching, and potentially his recruiting. We're going to keep these Jersey kids in the state.
Exactly. I'm very comfortable with Coach Ash. You know, he's doing a great job over there developing the guys that they do have. And in the meantime, recruiting these guys, getting these guys to stay around the state of New Jersey and also Connecticut and the Pennsylvania area, right? This New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Jersey area. You get these guys to start staying home and believing in the program. You know, Rutgers can be one of those prolific Big Ten schools. It's right here. It can be done. There's a lot of talent around this area. It's just believing in these guys and now developing them into football players. And you give them some time. And
you were at that Ohio State game. How's Ohio State look up close?
I'm telling you, they look like grown men. They got some grown boys over there. I'll tell you what, I remember I was just telling you how Coach Shannon told me he's hoping that they play like grown men, like they look. But when they played us, they did. I'm telling that Ohio State team, they could be something special. That defense is starting to get back there, pinning their ears back, playing one-on-one coverage on the outside, and they got some talent over there. As we were saying, they got some talent. They can make some plays. And J.T. Barrett, I feel like he's never going to leave Ohio State. He's been there forever. Having a veteran like that back there, man, that's just special for you.
Eric, you said at this point you sometimes look ahead and think that you'd be a seasoned veteran if you were playing in the NFL right now. How closely do you follow the NFL? Do you sit down like the rest of us and just inhale as much football as you possibly can and break it down for us? What do you like? What have you seen in the early part of the season so far?
Football Sunday is my thing. That's
awesome.
I wake up early in the morning. I'm watching all the pregame shows, getting myself ready. Have my game day traditions. I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan. So
I hear.
Yeah, so I'm really, you know, excited about us, you know, starting off this season. I know with our division with Kansas City Chiefs, we got to get as many wins as possible right now. Coming up and playing the Giants this week. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little bit nervous. I know they lost every wide receiver I feel like they have, but I feel like they're about to come out and play inspired football. I know
the Giants are about to?
I know. Please
tell us how
every
that's
Giants
possible.
fan is telling me, how is that possible?
This is a game
Why
you
are they going to do this?
Yeah.
These are one of these trap games where what do they have
They
to
get
lose?
on track against you.
0-5.
Nothing.
I don't know if they're going to get on track, but like I said,
Excuse me.
They're going to make me nervous for the very beginning until hopefully Denver comes out locked in and, like I said, don't overlook past them and coming off the bye week and just go handle your business and get out with W. That's what I'm hoping.
All right, so tell us a little bit about, if you could, Team LeGrand, Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, your guys' work.
Yeah, so I partnered up with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation in 2013 to form Team LeGrand of the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And it was, like I said, a foundation that I thought, because so many people were giving back to me, that I wanted to help other people in my situation. And, you know, it's to find a cure for paralysis, but we also got to help the people with the quality of life as they're going through these injuries. And that's why I want to keep on raising money so we can one day find a cure. That Christopher Reeve said that he wants to, his goal was to have a world with empty wheelchairs. And unfortunately, he passed away. It was just October 10th. It was just, what, 11 to 12 years ago. Just passed, but I feel like now that torch has been passed along to me, and now I became the face of spinal cord injuries, and I want to use my platform as much as possible so we can live in a world with empty wheelchairs. And the world of technology today, I believe we'll get that. I remember when I got hurt, I had the BlackBerry Curve with the ball falling down. Now we're going on with the iPhone X. Like, it's just crazy. In 7 years, how much technology is involved. So I truly believe that in my lifetime, you know, I'm 27, but we'll get there, and we'll be able to find a cure, and I'll be able to go back to MetLife and lay back down on that 25-yard line and finish that last play.
On behalf of Fox and First Things First, realize you have a home here. If you ever want to come, want to talk sports or anything, we'll get you right back in that seat again, so always know you're welcome here.
Thank you. I love to talk sports, so I'm always with it.
Eric, thank you so much. Again, the web series is called Mission Possible. You can find it on foxsports.com. It's wonderful. We really, really appreciate having you. Thanks.
Finish the play, man.
That's right.
Finish the play.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.